Okay, well, on today's show, we have the infamous Dr. Michael Brian Staton. Welcome back to the show.
So famous, he's infamous.
So,
That's the line from some movie.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Middle names are a big thing for you.
It is.
Yeah. What makes a middle name so important for you?
Well, because parents go through all this worry and stress of picking out names, and nobody knows anybody's middle name.
That's true.
And the parents labored and argued and fought and went to war over it, so people need to know.
Yeah, I agree.
Their name. So.
Do you know my middle name?
I don't.
You don't? Okay.
But I'd like to know.
It's Daniel.
Jeremy Daniel.
Jeremy Daniel.
Most people, if I know their middle name, I call them by their middle name.
Okay. I went through
Jeremy Daniel.
Yes.
I like it.
I like it too.
Okay.
I went through a phase in high school where I would have my choir directors and band directors change my name to Jeremy Daniel Davis in like the programs and stuff. Yeah. Jeremy was so common. I wanted to be distinct a little bit.
No, it sounds smart. You know, when you pick out your kids' names, I mean, you just put your heart and soul into it. And 1/3 of their name is usually not known. So
that's right.
I like to speak up for the forgotten middle names.
Okay, I like it. That's
Having said that, I never go by Michael Brian ever.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I used to think it was Michael Benjamin.
And no, Michael Brian.
At some point, I learned it was Brian.
Yep. Anyway. Brian with an I.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Okay, well, I thought it'd be great to have you on. We don't have necessarily a theme to this episode other than just Michael Staton. You are the theme. So just giving us just some general updates. You've not been on since Shepherd's Conference episode, and so I thought it'd be a good time for you to jump on. Fall is getting here. We're into the fall semester.
Yes.
And we have a lot going on. So how was your summer?
Yeah, things have been great, like usual. Busy and full, but so grateful, for our family. The big news for us was introducing grandkids into our family from RC and me. Kale and Bailey gave us our first grandchild in June. Mm-hmm. Little boy, Sutton Michael.
Important middle
names are important.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was such an honor, and when they told me the name they'd picked out, of course, it was such a thrill for me. So that was big news. He's doing great as we record this. He's 11 weeks old, and like all babies do, growing fast, changing fast.
Yeah. And
so we're having a blast with him.
That's great.
And then, as we record this, a week ago yesterday, Benjamin and Mary gave us our second grandchild, this one a girl, so first granddaughter, Rosie May. Mary has a great-grandmother whose name was Rosemary, I believe is the story.
Okay.
And so Rosie, and then Benjamin has a great-grandmother whose name was Bertha May. I don't know that those names were necessarily purposefully chosen that way.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, our granddaughter does actually have family names, first and middle name.
Yeah.
But the second that Benjamin told me the name they were thinking of, Rosie May, I instantly just fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Just fell in love with it. I was so hoping they wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
So Sutton Michael and Rosie May. So Marcy's name has gone from Marcy to Granny.
Yeah.
And my name from Michael to Grandpa. And so we are loving it.
That's great. That was my next question. What are the grandparent names? Because that's a big thing now.
It is. And Marcy right away kind of liked the idea of Granny. Mm-hmm. Neither one of us had a Granny in our families at this point.
Yeah.
And so it gets kind of confusing because you've got, dads on both sides and grandparents and great-grandparents. Mm-hmm. And there's only so many names you can use.
Yeah, that's right.
But I like just the traditional standard grandpa and
very good.
Marshall Granny from the get-go. So
yeah. Well, as a man who still goes to the bank to cash checks,
right.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
That's what I do go to the bank. I go every Friday, in fact. I'll be there in the morning. They know me by name. But no, that's what Marcy said. She's like, yeah, surprise, surprise, he's going with Grandpa.
Yeah,
Something traditional.
Yeah,
and,
very traditional. That's
Yeah.
great. That's good. Okay, so how's ministry been? How have things here at the church been for you?
Yeah, it's been such a sweet season for our church, and I feel like every ministry is doing well. I feel like every ministry is aligned. You know, I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and he'd been in the church for, I think, 5 years. And he was asking me, you know, like, how long does it take to feel like just everything is in line?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just telling him last week that, like, it's not that everything is perfect by any means. I mean,
Sure.
there's always areas to improve. There's always areas that need attention. That never, ever stops. But as far as just feeling like everybody's fully aligned and going the right path in the right direction, and I told him I really felt like for me there were a couple of markers. I feel like it was about 6 or 7 years into it that I felt like, in general, myself, our church staff, key leaders, the church as a whole, were able to kind of see where we were trying to go.
Right.
And I feel like there was another marker along the way around year 15 that I felt like we took another jump from we're all in alignment of what we believe and think we should be doing
Yeah.
to getting into alignment of fully actually doing that.
Yeah.
And then there was a third marker for me, which would have been the time of COVID and coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
Where I felt like our whole church collectively said, okay, this is why we believe these things.
Yeah.
This was kind of the great being squeezed to see what comes out. And what came out was people who loved the Bible, loved each other, cared about the church, understood the importance of the church. And so, honestly, for me, it would be like year 20 and 21
Yeah.
of my time here that would be another marker of feeling like things were just really in line and going the right way.
Yeah.
And so today I'm finishing year 24, and I'm so thankful, because by no means are we a perfect church, by no means have we arrived, by no means we have it figured out, but I do feel like our church is clear on who we are.
Yeah.
And why we are that way, and the biblical convictions behind what drives everything we do.
Right.
Now, one of the good things with our church is we're adding a lot of new members all the time, and so you're always rebuilding that foundation in that sense. You're always reteaching the basics,
Right.
because your church changes so much when you add new people. But I do feel like we're at a place where we know who we are.
Yeah.
We know what our God-given biblical role is. And we want to support other churches. We want to pray for other churches. We want to encourage other churches. But the thought of competing with other churches is, I think and hope and pray, driven away.
Yeah.
And not anything that our people feel. If another church is doing the wrong thing, they're sure not our competitors. If another church is doing the right thing, and God blesses them, then that's wonderful. It's a kingdom win.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like these are good days for our church, and I'm really grateful to get to be a part of it.
Yeah. I know for me, early on when you were doing some discipleship stuff with me before I had come on staff here, you were kind of talking about that concept. And one thing that was really helpful for me was, I think it's fairly easy to put words to that and say that we believe that, but then in action and kind of in our heart response to when we hear news or things going on, that's kind of where it really tests whether we truly believe that or not. And you challenged me to start praying for churches that were right around us, or right around me at the time,
right.
that would fall into that category of perhaps those would be the churches we would have been in theory competing with.
Right.
And it really changes the way you view other churches and other pastors.
Well, it does, because if you're sincerely praying for other biblical churches to do well, to be blessed, to reach people, to see spiritual fruit,
yeah.
if you're really praying for that, then when you see it happen, you get to rejoice with them because you've been a part of that.
Yep.
And it's God answering your own prayers. And if your heart doesn't really feel that, then that prayer for them convicts you of that. It brings it to the surface.
Yeah.
And so I think that probably a lot of young pastors just instinctively feel defensive or protective, competitive in an unhealthy way. I want us to be competitive with ourselves in the sense of saying, how can we be as faithful as we can be? How can we maximize our resources, our influence, what's been entrusted to us? But I mean, truly, I think praying for other churches, other pastors, other ministries is just a great way to reveal pride in your own heart that you may not know was there, to fight against it, and to keep your eyes focused on the kingdom, which is far greater than just our address.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of addresses and our own address, as we get back into the fall semester, we start our Sunday evening gatherings back. Yeah. So we get to not just be at home on Sunday evenings, we get to be back with our church family. Tell me a little bit about why do you think it's so important that we end the Lord's Day with being back at church, and what's the necessity there? I think a lot of people see it as just this optional thing or something that's really not that important, or maybe it's old-fashioned even. But why is it important? Why is it so beneficial to be there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I would want to start from the standpoint of, we want to be gracious with that. The Bible doesn't tell us we have to meet morning and evening. The Bible doesn't tell us how, have one service or two or three throughout the day. So I think we want to be gracious with churches that may do things differently, for sure. And in our own church, we've got flexibility in our schedule, and we typically take the summer months off because of camps and retreats and so many other special things, events that are going on of ministry. But I do think there's great help in gathering for an evening service. And I think there's several reasons why. One is if worship is a joy, then it gives people twice the joy on the Lord's Day. Yeah. And I recognize that we're real people in a real world with real struggles, and sometimes getting to church on a Sunday morning is hard, and sometimes life is difficult. I mean, I get all that, but for me, man, there's just nothing as thrilling as being at church on Sunday morning. And so to be able to add a second service in the evening to that just increases our joy as believers. Yeah. I think in terms of just Bible preaching, Bible teaching, the more you can learn, the better. The more the Bible you can understand, the better. And makes sense to say we can learn more of the Bible by gathering more than less. I think there's great value in it with allowing other pastors to use their teaching and preaching gifts. And so, typically, I'm not overly beholden to this model, but typically what I've done the last number of years is I'll take a stretch of time where I'm teaching through a book or a passage, and then once that concludes, typically a shorter passage than like a Sunday morning. Yeah. Then we'll rotate through our pastors and give them chances to teach and preach. So I taught through the armor of God from Ephesians 6, and then our pastors rotated through preaching, and then I taught through Lamentations, and then I taught through Psalm 23, then we rotated through, right now we're in 1 Thessalonians, and we finished with that at the semester. My plan next semester is to then rotate through our pastors. So I think it just gives your own pastors more of a chance to teach and to preach. It gives our people more of a chance to learn and hear from other people. Another thing I love about Sunday night service is it's a chance for people to self-identify as the core of the church. Yeah. That's not to say that if someone doesn't come back on Sunday nights, they don't love Jesus. That's not to say they don't care about the church. But in a really clear way, I think, the simplest way to know who is the backbone and the core of the church are people who come back on Sunday evenings. When they don't have to. They don't feel guilty if they don't. But it's just people who want to come, want to worship, want to be fed, want to meet other people. In our situation here, we have 2 services on Sunday morning. Yep. And so Sunday night provides the opportunity to meet people and worship with people that on Sunday morning you can't. And so, if you go to the 9 o'clock service and another faithful family goes at 10:30, you could both be here and not worship together. Yeah. Sunday evening gives the chance to remove that. Yeah. And now people can worship, at least hypothetically, with the whole church. And so I think that's a great help as well. I think that there is another blessing of Sunday night service. When people come on Sunday mornings, there's so many people that have responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at our church with preschool, Sunday school, and children and youth and adults, you're talking about hundreds of people who
Mm-hmm.
teach. Then you add to it people who are on eyes and ears, people who are greeters, people who are in the choir, people who play an instrument. There's people that serve with our live stream ministry. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many people that come on Sunday morning that are serving, which is great.
Right.
But Sunday evening service gives a chance for most of those people to come gather for worship without having to worry about how did I just do in that lesson?
Right.
Or I've got a class I'm teaching right after the service is over and getting mentally ready for that.
Right.
Or moving around in so many different places because they were there early for a prayer, then they had to sing in the choir, and then they went to teach Sunday school, then they came to service. So Sunday night strips away so much of that part of it.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of our people who serve, Sunday night's a great chance to come to the church for worship without the added stress and pressure of things they're supposed to be doing and getting done.
Right.
So I think for all of those reasons, Sunday night church is a great thing. But again, I do think we want to be careful because if we say 2 services better than 1, well, is 3 better than 2?
Yeah.
Is 4 better than 3? Should we have worship services at 10, noon, 2, and 6? You know, I mean, so I think we want to be careful to give grace to other churches for sure.
Sure.
Who don't have an evening service. But I do think there's great benefit to it. I don't think there's any harm in saying let's gather for worship more.
Yeah.
Let's sing more. Let's encourage each other more. Let's study God's word more. I think that sometimes what you see, unfortunately, our churches have evening services where the pastor wishes they didn't.
Yeah.
And so the congregation gets kind of just some warmed up leftovers.
Yeah.
And I think the church probably eventually sees that and knows that.
Yeah.
So I think it's imperative that whoever's preaching that service gives it everything they have.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, for me, if I'm preaching on Sunday night, I am no less excited about that than I am Sunday morning.
Yeah.
It honestly, to me, it is such a privilege to teach the Word. Whether I'm doing that with our children in Awana on a Wednesday night, or whether I'm doing that with a small group Bible study, or if it's a Sunday night service or a morning service or Easter Sunday, honestly, the size of the crowd has no impact on my preparation or my enjoyment of the moment. And so I love coming back and being here on Sunday nights. I love the dynamic of it. I love all that goes into Sunday morning, but there is something about the simpler dynamic on Sunday night that I enjoy too.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I think it's a great benefit. And then there is also a personal thing for me. I look at the books of the Bible I've been able to preach through, and I've got a limited amount of Sundays to preach.
Sure.
And I don't know what that number is.
Yeah.
The Lord does. I don't know what it is. But I need all the Sundays I can, morning and evening, to get through as much of the Bible teaching as I possibly can before I'm out of here to meet the Lord.
Yeah.
And that may be another month, that may be another 10 years, or by God's grace, maybe 30 more years. But every chance you get to add to that body of work for me studying it personally and then preparing to preach it and then serving it to our people, the better.
Yeah,
so.
That's great. So speaking of teaching, you're in 1 Thessalonians, and something I love about Sunday nights is there's, like you said, there's not as much going on. There aren't as many responsibilities and all of that. And there is just a more relaxed feel about it. And especially towards like the end of the service. You're not thinking about, am I getting out on time so that the next group of people can come in and start their worship service, and, all getting people to class on time and all of those things. If you go 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes longer than you did the week before, that's great.
There's so, like, for example, just this past Sunday morning, for example. So I get to church early. I've got a large group of friends I pray for, send them all a text every Sunday. After that's over, I meet with our staff and our deacons for prayer. And then first service starts. This past Sunday, I was baptizing 2 different people, so I'm also meeting with them and making sure everything's ready for baptism.
Yep.
And then I'm out in the hallway shaking hands, and there's someone who's not a member that asks for help finding a Sunday school class. and it's like 2 minutes before the church service starts. So I take them to a Sunday school class. While I'm doing that, I'm getting a text saying, "Do you remember you're baptizing? Are you going to be here?" And so then I'm literally running to get to the baptistry in time.
Yeah.
Baptize those 2 people, go back down. Now I'm in the service. Now I've got to prepare to preach twice in between those services, trying to meet people who are new to our church, those kinds of things. And so I love all of it, but it's just so much. It's just so many things on your mind.
Right.
And when you come back on Sunday evening, even though for me normally I'm preaching and preparing for that, or some Sundays if other pastors are, then I don't have to have that on my mind. But there is a little bit of having some of that pressure of outside things removed a bit.
Yeah.
And after church is over on Sunday night, one of my favorite things to do is just to talk to people, go down to the preschool area and talk to families and parents, and just see the church being able to talk and discuss and the fellowship aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. After those Sunday night services, there's a lot of fellowship, and I love that we end a few minutes before all of the kids choir stuff lets out, because it gives all the adults a chance to take their time getting down there and chat a little bit and maybe discuss what they've just learned. We also get to do some different things in the service because we aren't quite on the same, don't have the same time restraints. So whether we're praying with other people or as we did a few weeks ago, which, outside of what I'm used to doing, is going around shaking everybody's hand and doing kind of the old school thing. Yeah. Which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing that as well.
And we often will take, not every week, but we often will take time where we'll get into groups for prayer. We'll give people some prayer ideas or a passage to pray through, and have people get in different size groups to pray. Just things that are much harder in a Sunday morning service to do. Yep. So I think there are some different elements that we can do that. We have more testimonies at times on Sunday evenings than others. And so I just think it just provides all the more time for spiritual enrichment and ministry to the body and from the body. And I love, but I've just always loved being at church. Yeah. When I was a little kid, I couldn't wait to go to church. Yeah. I've always loved it. And as an adult, really about Thursday night, I'd start getting a little antsy. And by Saturday afternoon, I'm just like, let's just go. Let's just meet at church. And I love it.
I get it. So 1 Thessalonians, as you're getting into it, why did you want to teach that book next? Yeah. And other than the obvious answers of it being profitable, as all Scripture is for us and beneficial to us, what are the reasons that we should want to be in the book of Thessalonians? Yeah, 1 Thessalonians.
So two different questions. One is, why should we read Thessalonians? The other is, why am I preaching it? Yeah. So I'll kind of combine those together. So one of the reasons why I wanted to preach it is because I've never taught it. So I've read it, I've studied it. I've never preached through 1 Thessalonians or 2 Thessalonians. So one reason was I wanted to find a book I haven't taught. Another practical reason is because of Sunday nights, because for us, there are other special events that we do throughout the year. And so whether it's Family Matters dinner or special gatherings for the holidays, sometimes we do our seminars on Sunday nights. And so because of that, I try to find a book that would kind of fit with our calendar schedule. And so with 1 Thessalonians having 5 chapters, it lent itself just in length. Another practical reason I picked that book is we've been going through Mark for about 2.5 years, and while Mark is a shorter gospel, it still is a long study. Yeah. And so I think it's good to try to provide some balance. So if you're in we're in Mark since, March of 22, I think it was. So about 2.5 years ago, and we've still got a few weeks to go. So I wanted to give our people a shorter book that we could get our arms around pretty quickly. Yeah. Start it, work through it, end it, and have something our people can say, I understand that book. So those are some of the practical things. Yeah. Haven't taught it before. It's a good length for a season for Sunday nights, and it's something we can start and finish in relatively short time compared to what would have been Sunday morning. So those are some of the practical things. As far as the benefit of the book itself, I love it because it talks about how the people of God are to live. So there's the doctrine of what we should believe, but there's also that follow-through of how then do we live with this?
Right.
And I think 1 Thessalonians carries so much doctrine that matches with immediate application.
Yeah.
And so it describes how the church is. It describes what they're doing well, and then gives us the immediate question of, are we doing that?
Yeah.
It talks about the importance of imitating faithful churches, which is immediately applicable for us to say, are we imitating other faithful churches? And is the way that we're doing ministry as a church worthy of someone else
Right.
looking up to us and following our example?
Yep.
Now that, of course, goes to 1 Corinthians, where Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ.
Yeah.
But it's the same idea you see in 1 Thessalonians. And so are our lives individually worthy of emulation? Are we looking up to faithful role models to follow? Is our church joining in line with other faithful churches? And are we presenting ourselves for Christ's glory according to his word as a faithful example to other churches?
Yep.
I think there's some doctrine in 1 Thessalonians that's very interesting for people. It deals with the day of the Lord and issues with eschatology.
Yeah.
Which is particularly interesting because it's a church that Paul starts. He's just there for a short time.
Yeah.
And then he writes back to them based on Timothy's report he has given him about the church. And he's going to go build upon the doctrine of eschatology, which he obviously had already taught to them.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people think, well, eschatology is take it or leave it, not that important. Or if you get to it, it's what you do at the very end of your life, or it's things you do when you've been a believer for all these decades. And I think this example in this book gives us the opposite, that this is an important doctrine to teach early on. And then so much so that he taught them when he was there, and then he builds back on it when he writes the letter.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a good example for us to make sure that we're not leaving out things that the Apostle Paul thinks by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit is important to cover.
Yeah.
So I think for all of those reasons, it's a good book for our people to know.
Yeah.
I think there is so much, and there's also a bunch of history there. If you just to understand the context of 1 Thessalonians, helps people understand a little bit of just what's going on timeline-wise with the early church. And so I think there's great theology, and there's great application, and there's great encouragement for the church. I think there's several doctrines that are important, including eschatology, that are there. So I think all of those are reasons to study the book. And then when you put that together with the reasons of why I talk about preaching it, I think for us it becomes a helpful time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for anyone out there that maybe you want to be a Bible teacher, maybe you're teaching a Sunday school class, maybe you're teaching somewhere else, you're not at our church or something like that. Michael's introduction to 1 Thessalonians was phenomenal. It's just, I feel like it was just a clinic on how to start a book of the Bible.
Well, I appreciate it, and that I appreciate that. And that's also an example too of why I like Sunday night service, because while on Sunday morning I don't think you want to water things down, I don't think you want to strip things down by any means.
Right.
I do think just the feel, the dynamic, the atmosphere of Sunday night service just tends to, at least in some way, lend itself to being able to do a little bit more of a helpful introduction like that.
Right.
I'm not worried honestly about grabbing or keeping people's attention on a Sunday evening too much. They're there because they want to be there.
Right.
They're there because they want to learn.
Yeah.
And so I think it gives you the opportunity to do a little bit more background and history and helpful context, which we always want to provide. But I felt like on Sunday evening it allowed a little bit deeper opportunity for that. So
yeah, I agree. Well, as we get into the fall, what are some upcoming things that you're looking forward to this fall? Some fun things in the church that they're going to be going on, things that people are going to want to be a part of.
So, everybody loves the fall.
Yeah.
Everybody loves summer, but there is a part of routine that's helpful.
Yeah.
There is a part of kind of knowing more of a steady rhythm, and I think the fall semester allows that. Even for people like me who are empty nesters, the school calendar doesn't affect my life directly, but there is still a rhythm and routine of life that in our culture that comes with school starting back. I think it's just a natural time for people to evaluate their life and their family, to make some changes, create new habits and patterns. I think for our church, as we look forward to the next few months, One of the highlights for me every fall is in October when we do our Family Matters dinner. We do that twice a year. It's just a free meal for our people to come, hear testimonies of how God's been faithful to our people, and hear from all different ages and men and women and teenagers and all different ministries of how we've seen the Lord at work. It's a chance for us to look forward and say, here are some things that we sense the Lord directing our steps to do through His Word. And so I love that evening. That to me is always a highlight. Along with that, in the early fall, we typically have a day where all of our choirs come together, children's choir and youth choir and adult choir, to form a multi-generational choir. We do that typically every October on a Sunday, and that's always a thrill just to see visually what that looks like for all these different ages of people to stand shoulder to shoulder and sing to the Lord. I always look forward to that. Often, we don't do it every year, but often in November, we are this year as well, having a Great Commission Sunday where we just refocus our efforts on what we're doing to the nations, the neighborhoods. And I'm looking forward to that and just reminding our people of the importance of living life on mission and how we can be a part of that through giving and praying and going on mission trips, supporting those who are away from us. And then, of course, as you get into December, all the Christmas traditions we have here that are a real thrill and something that I think just our people resonate with. And so I look forward to all those things.
Well, I think we all look forward to Christmas. And I know you're a big Christmas junkie, and I know everybody has different rules and regulations on how they go about Christmas and when it's time to listen to Christmas music and stuff. For me personally, this year, I kind of threw it out the window. I kind of indulged whenever I wanted to. So just a few weeks ago, my family, we sat around and watched a Christmas movie together while we ate dinner. And we're weirdos, so I certainly have a problem. But what's your rule? When do you start listening to Christmas music? When is it legal in the state?
There are rules. There are rules, and they should be followed. So. The problem is the rules are kind of hidden. They're not written down anywhere. They're just things I know. So let me help you. So you decorate for fall September 15th.
Okay.
And I give some leeway on that, but people often want to decorate fall too early because they want it to be fall. They want it to be cold and it's 100 degrees outside and you can't put fall stuff up yet. So September 15th is when that goes up. October 1st, I'm not a hunter. A lot of people are hunters. I don't know the dates, but there's rifle season or whatever for things you hunt, whatever that would be.
I don't know what it is.
I don't either. But Christmas season, the kickoff is October 1st. And the reason for that is because Christmas is month after next at that point. So October 1st for me is when I transition to Christmas music.
Okay.
I will occasionally listen to some Christmas before that. In fact, yesterday I was working on some stuff for December, and so I had Christmas music playing, but that would be rare. Once it's October 1st, it's all Christmas.
Okay.
And for the people who are like, well, what about Thanksgiving? I decorate for fall. My house, my office, we're decorated for Thanksgiving. And I'll just remind you, you can be thankful all year long. It doesn't have to just be a certain day. But Christmas decorations, this is the big one. So if it were me, I like Christmas to go up the first or second weekend in November. My wife wants Christmas to go up the day after Thanksgiving, which is clearly ridiculous.
Clearly.
And so Marcy and I, we've been married 28 years. Our marriage is imperfect, but we honestly never argue. We're too old to argue. We need each other too much to go up and down stairs and curbs to argue. So we have one passive-aggressive fight a year, and it's over Christmas decorations. This year, we brought our representation together, and we've established a rule, we think, of an agreed-upon time to decorate.
Okay.
So she likes to leave it up till New Year's. I like it to come down as soon as Christmas is over, to be put away. So you got to compromise on some of those things. But October 1st is the kickoff of Christmas music.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I can.
And don't put your tree up in October. I've got some friends that put them up in October.
Yeah.
That's too early.
Okay.
As a Christmas loving guy.
Okay.
We got to get to November.
Okay. So November 1st is fine though?
It's okay. I like first or second weekend of November.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think I can support that. Yeah, we like Christmas. I mainly like just the Christmas decoration, just the way the house feels and all of that. Just there's something about it.
It is. Well,
it's
it's different. It's a break. It's pretty. It's easier to want to keep your house clean when it's decorated nice.
Absolutely.
And there is just something about your kids get up and the house looks different. This reminds me this is a special season.
Yeah.
And we can and should celebrate certain things all throughout the year. But there's a reason why you take your wife out to dinner on your anniversary.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you give your wife a gift on her birthday. You can give her a gift all throughout the year.
Right.
There's a reason why there's dates and markers that help us to express our love and appreciation. And honestly, I think Christmas season is one of those things. It's a very natural time to give gifts to people. It's a natural time to send letters or cards to give updates of your family. It's a natural time to express appreciation to people at the Thanksgiving season and Christmas season. And I think it's, our world doesn't have too much of that.
Yeah.
We don't struggle because too many people are too kind.
Sure. Yeah.
So for all those reasons, I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think the next time we have you on, we need to maybe get you and Marcy on to talk all about Christmas stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to, because we do, there are things that we do to try to make Christmas season special.
Okay.
And honestly, like one of the things I'm so thankful for, Marcy made, the only way I can describe it, Marcy made our house magic at Christmas.
Yeah.
And still does. But when our kids were little, my boys, even as they were growing up, their friends would come to our house and they would just tell me how much they loved being in our home.
Yeah.
And it's Marcy she's always worked it makes her, our home's imperfect. I'm not trying to say like we walk through the house singing hymns all the time, although I often do, much to my wife's chagrin. But no, our lives are imperfect. But Marcy works so hard and always has to make our house just a place of just joy, just a refuge. I love my job. I love to work. I could work all day long and love it.
Yeah.
But when I go home, I love that I'm home.
Yeah.
And at Christmas time especially, there's just no, this is just my opinion because that's the one I grew up in or have lived in, but there's just no place like our house at Christmas. And I'd love to talk about those things because I think there are things you can do to make your family just really enjoy being home. Not things that take a lot of money, not talking about expensive gifts or expensive trips, just simple things that help your family connect Christmas with Christ, connect the joy of family at that time, and to see your home. And this is year round, but people are more likely to go to a Christmas party than they are a random party kind of a thing.
Right.
But to use your home as a way to try to bless and welcome others. Nobody's better at that than Marcy is through the years. So there's a lot of things there that we do on purpose that are meaningful for us.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's a great update, and I think a great conversation. And Michael, I really appreciate your dedication to our church and the work and the effort you put in each and every week to lead our staff, to lead our leadership, and lead the people that are part of the flock.
No, I appreciate that. It's always fun to talk with you. One last thing I thought of, I might share just as we end here.
Yeah.
So I'm 51.
Okay.
I turned 50 a year ago, so I'm 51. Marcy turns 50 in October. And, of course, now we're grandparents. And so you kind of start to see yourself on the other side of that hill, so to speak. Sure. And looking, and again, I don't know what the Lord's plan is. I don't, health isn't promised. Tomorrow's not promised to us. But I was looking at this. I mentioned this in church a couple weeks ago. I'm 51. I've been here 24 years. Mm-hmm. If the Lord were to give me 24 more, which He's not obligated to do. Sure. But if He were to give me 24 more years, that'd get me at 75. And if that were to work that way, I would be at the halfway point of my ministry here. And while there are some guys who are counting down the days of retirement or just thinking, how much I'm going to have to do this, I am so thankful that if I could have my prayer answered, it would be that at the halfway point only, or maybe not even quite there.
Yeah.
I recognize that's not promised, and so I want to make the most of every opportunity. I don't want to take anything for granted.
Right.
But after being here for 24 years, if it could be that I were just at the halfway point or not even quite there yet,
Yeah.
I would be so grateful. Mm-hmm. Now, that may sound terrible to our church. They may think, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. And I may come to my office one day, my key doesn't work, and that's my way of knowing it doesn't matter how old you are, you're done. But I'm thankful to serve at a church where, as I envision my life and pray for my life, I hope for more time, more Sundays, more seasons, not fewer. And that's a testimony to our church.
Absolutely.
And their love of the Word, their support of what we do. And I'm just thankful that I get to serve at a place where my prayer, anyway, is for more and more and more time, not what else can we do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I echo that and agree with it wholeheartedly. I think that's great. Listener, thank you so much for joining us. Once again, Michael, thank you for being on the show and being a part. If you would like to know more about FBC Mustang, you can go to fbcmustang.org. You can join us on Sunday mornings at 9 or 10:30 or at 5 p.m., Wednesday nights at 6:30. We will catch you next time on the 412 Podcast.